So Lakshmi, I'm sure you get this question quite often from your clients. How long will it take someone to recover? How do you respond to that question?
Yes, all the time, all the time. And it makes sense, right? Because it's helpful if I have a sense of how long this is going to take me. Um, or so we think, but it's not, the problem is the answer is not as straightforward as we think. Um, the topic of anxiety comes up a lot. It's probably going to come up in every single conversation we have. And I like to say that anxiety is not a pathology, it's not a particular illness. Anxiety is a feeling that we all have when I don't have enough information, when I don't know how to do something. And quickly, the other thing I want to put here is in places where I might need the support of somebody else. If I cannot do it myself, then I will have a feeling of anxiety. So I'm going to say anxiety is a common friend when I'm a small child. We don't think that way, but small children have anxiety about all kinds of things. They have, and the most you'll see a small child having anxiety is when they're separated from their mother because they cannot do a whole lot of things without mom's help.
Right.
Right?
Because for me, anxiety, it's my perceived inability to take care of what I need to take care of. So it makes sense as a child. So when the mother is not there, you're quite helpless.
Yes.
So perfect example of anxiety.
So anxiety is something that we have on and off, and anxiety becomes an issue when it starts interrupting my function in some way. So then we diagnose somebody with anxiety. A very simple, the very bottom level diagnosis would be separation anxiety, social anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder.
Mm-hmm.
On a little higher level, it'll start showing a self-harm, or it could be addictions, or it could be an eating disorder. And I put it in that order because an eating disorder is a very, very indirect way of saying, I'm not okay. I'm not going to say it with my mouth. I'm going to say it in this very indirect way that actually requires a lot of decoding.
That's relatable. Yeah.
When I think about somebody self-harming, if I take something and cut myself and there's blood, anyone who sees the blood knows that I'm in trouble. It's quite direct when you think about it. An eating disorder is incredibly indirect.
Right.
So we make the connection. And then, so when we think about that question, how long does it take me to recover? As long as it takes for me to feel I can, I'm looking for the right word because it's not like managing or dealing with or doing away with my feelings. As long as it takes for me to get comfortable with feeling these feelings in my body and I can tolerate them. Right?
So I guess that it's not necessarily the length of recovery, it's how long is the journey of learning how to manage your anxiety? Where does your anxiety come from? How can we manage it?
And I get comfortable with it because it's going to happen again.
Right.
I am going to get anxious again in my life when something happens. Life is unpredictable. And so finding some ease with difficult feelings, finding some ease with the unpredictability of life, finding some ease with the fluidity of my body. Because, you know, I wrote in my blog that if I wanted my body to stay in one place, um, I have to be Pinocchio, you know, like I shouldn't grow. I should be made of wood.
Right.
I can't, but the body, the human body is a fluid thing. Like it'll move this way and that, you know. So I have to have some tolerance for living in my body.
Yeah.
The process of recovery, when I think about it, in eating disorders, it does have to do with food. So I have eliminated 450 things because that's how I can keep my body in one place. There is no ease with life. There is no ease with food. There is no ease with my body. And I'm trying to get to this place of ease with everything difficult. I am trying to figure out how I can find some ease with the anxious feelings in my body. And partially, I do that through facing food.
Right.
We want to kind of separate these behaviors with food from my feelings about life. And my feelings about life, we can work on them separately.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to take the whole food issue out of it because that food piece is actually holding me hostage.
Right. Yeah.
So I am going to have to learn to incorporate cheese back into my diet. I have to learn to put bread back in my diet. And every time, we all know, when we come to that part of, oh, I have to eat cheese, I have a freak out
Mm-hmm.
because I feel in my body that, yeah, this is where something bad is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to lose control, right?
Right.
So I was thinking about, crossing the threshold. Again, this is where the anxiety hits the road, is crossing the threshold of eating that cheese, of eating that bread, of eating, I don't know, a cupcake, and I freak out, I freak out, I freak out. So I kind of say, the road to recovery is full of freakouts. It's a series of freakouts.
Mm-hmm.
But as I, slowly cross the threshold of one thing after another, after some time, I start realizing, oh, I'm having a pretty disproportionate freak out to this other thing, and I ate it, and I'm still okay, and nothing happened.
Right.
And I start having an easier relationship with my freakouts,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the freakouts, which felt like a tsunami in the beginning, start feeling like smaller waves.
Yeah, so it's exposure therapy.
Yes,
Again
it
and
is
again and
exposure,
again.
really.
Yeah.
But through that exposure, I'm becoming familiar with anxiety, learning that I can manage it. It's not going to kill me. Whereas initially I felt like I'm going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized I'm not dying. My body is actually digesting this food. I am actually having more energy. My hair looks better. I feel like I have more energy to go out. I'm more interested in what my friend has to say. I'm not lost in the calculation in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And I slowly walk myself out of an eating disorder.
Right. Yeah, I like to think of it like for me it felt like it kind of melted away bit by bit. And I think what's going to be really helpful for people watching is to realize that, and it's ironic, you can't take the numbers of your eating disorder and translate it to the numbers of your recovery, right?
Yeah.
You can't take the same attitude,
Yeah.
the same anxiousness, and just say, I'm doing X, Y, and Z, doing everything my dietitian says, I'm doing everything my therapist says. How long is this going to take? Give me weeks, give me days. You can't, what you're saying is that there's no answer like that.
Till you let go of the numbers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, even the numbers about recovery, which is interesting.
And I just want to say that, again, not to beat oneself up about it, control is the flip side of anxiety, right? The control is as big as my anxiety is.
Mm-hmm.
The more we work on anxiety and ease it, the control goes down.
Oh, I'm just picturing a beautiful animation of that. That's such a good visual for what happens.
So the more easy this becomes, you will just see that I just don't have that urge that everything has to be just so.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I feel like people enter into recovery thinking it's about the food, it's about my self-control, it's about these cravings, it's about this, it's about that. And then once they start, it's like, oh, why are we focusing on childhood? Why? And then you realize as you go, it's like, okay, well, I'm healing these parts, reducing anxiety, and it's true, it all just kind of melts away, right?
The last thing I do want to add is this idea of asking for help or
Mm-hmm.
taking help. So I often hear, I can do it myself. So, no, I want to do it myself. I can do it myself. I don't want to bother anybody. I don't want to rock the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And often I tell people, asking for help is a part of life. It's actually a very, very important skill.
It's a skill, absolutely.
It's a skill. Just knowing my limitations, because we all have limitations. Like, I am this therapist, but I'm just a human being, and there are times when I need help. And so the better I am about asking for help, the easier my life is going to be. Um, it's not weakness to ask for help, and nobody is so strong that they can do it all by themselves. That's a very naive understanding of life, and it's a very harmful understanding of life that I can do it all myself. I cannot, because my knees are going to buckle, my back is going to hurt, I'm going to hurt myself if I think that I can do it all myself.
Yeah.
So family support, Likely friend support, we don't want to put too much on friends. Definitely a good therapist, a good dietitian that I trust and I can lean on, and who can hold hope for me till I get there. Right?
Right.
Hope comes along the way when I start realizing, oh, I can handle my freak out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start feeling more hopeful. Initially, the freak outs are the thing that hold me hostage. I am so scared of a freak out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I guess the answer is it depends.
it depends.
It depends, and it depends on the work done with anxiety.
Yeah, it really depends on the level of anxiety.